Welcome back. New buildings in Singapore will soon need to follow a revised building code to make the country more inclusive. Features like barrier-free entrances to key facilities like train stations, as well as even wider lifts, will be a must. The new requirements take effect from 1st November this year.
For wheelchair users like Ms Judy Wee, a wider lift door and bigger mirrors would help her navigate in and out of lifts more easily. And such building improvements will go a long way in making public spaces more accessible.
Many years ago, when people ask, where are persons with disabilities? You don't even see them, right? Why are we making things accessible when you don't see persons with disabilities on the streets? But I say if you don't provide, you'll never see them. But lo and behold, many years later, our office buildings are accessible, our public spaces are accessible.
New buildings must also have more toilet cubicles that are user-friendly for those with mobility issues like the elderly. These cubicles must be installed with additional handlebars. Seats will also be required at taxi drop-off points to serve as a place for commuters to rest. One occupational therapist says these elements are important in an aging society like Singapore.
Having all these chronic conditions are really affecting their balance and mobilities or lack of confidence when going out. So by having essential accessibility features in the general public, especially buildings and our living spaces, I think our seniors are gaining confidence with all these facilities and accessible features. So therefore, we are not just supporting aging place, but also enabling seniors to participate fully in the community.
There'll also be more support for nursing mothers. More building types will now need to have lactation rooms, including smaller buildings and educational institutions.
Designers and architects, they may want more design flexibility to meet the different project circumstances. So the code will also introduce certain relaxations to introduce flexibility for our building designers and developers. And all this will help them to provide all these accessible facilities at the same time, not increasing too much of compliance costs.
BCA adds that the code serves as a baseline and it encourages the industry to go beyond it to create a more user-friendly environment. The code will apply to new buildings and existing ones with renovation works, requiring BCA's approval from 1st November.
And for more, we have two guests joining us now with more on the revised building code. We have Tan Jwu Yih, who is Director of Building Plan and Universal Design Department at BCA, and also joining us is Ms Judy Wee, who is Executive Director at the Muscular Dystrophy Association of Singapore. Now, welcome to the show, both of you. Let's start with you, Jwu Yih. This is the 6th revision of the code since 1990. Why was the code changed so often, and what new needs are being met since the last time the code was changed?
Yeah, the code on accessibility sets out a set of building design standards to ensure that the buildings in Singapore are designed to be accessible and inclusive for persons with disabilities, for elderly, and also for families with young children. Singapore is facing a fast aging population, and also there's also increasing focus on creating an inclusive society for persons with disabilities and young families. I think our built environment need to evolve to meet these needs. Our building codes also need to adapt so that we can support the needs of our community. So as compared to the earliest version of the code, I think in this version, we have increased the requirements for lactation rooms to support our families. At the same time, we also introduce enhanced requirements to increase the accessibility for wheelchair users and persons with disabilities. So in particular, for buildings, we want to ensure that all the key entrances connecting to key facilities, such as bus stops, taxi stands, MRT stations, remain accessible and convenient for persons with disabilities.
And we'll get into more detail on those latest changes as well in just a bit. But Judy, I want to get with you now. Have you had, we've seen better wheelchair access in buildings for quite a while now. Do you think the most significant changes and improvements are in this latest update? What has come through for you as most significant?
Well, I guess you could say that, much has changed over the years. But in this year's code, we look at how we can increase the exits, the accessible exits and entrances leading to a building. Because sometimes when you have an exit that leads directly to an MRT stop or a bus stop or something that leads you to facilities, right? You need to go all the way around the building just to find your way to an accessible entrance or exit. Whereas now, if all key entrances are more accessible, it gives you a more direct link and improves connectivity from one facility to another. Yeah.
Can you also share more from your personal experiences? How has better wheelchair access and even some of the latest changes in the code, how will that really improve your lives on a very real and tangible level day to day? Can you share some examples from your personal experience?
Well, I move around on my wheelchair. I use both a manual as well as a motorized wheelchair to move around. How it has improved my independence has allowed me to take public transport and go wherever I want. In the past, right, when we wanted to travel, we had to think about where we wanted to go and how we get there. But now I don't have that fear. I just go, and I'm very assured that that particular area will be accessible. Whether it's to go to school, find a school that is accessible, find a workplace that I can work at that's accessible. Now you have so much option. There are no limits of what you can do, and opportunities have just opened up. I would say that it's a good time to be able to be what we call really inclusive by letting persons with disabilities move from one place to another. Yeah.
It's very heartening to hear the very real and personal impact this is making. But Jwu Yih, let's look at things from a wider perspective as well. Clearly, this effort to be more inclusive and make sure everyone's needs are met on an individual level. But why is this transformation also necessary for Singapore on a national level?
Yes, indeed. I think that's a very good question. There are few important reasons why Singapore needs to transform to make our environment more inclusive. So firstly, as I mentioned earlier, we are experiencing a fast aging populations. So by projection, right, by the year 2030, 1 in 4 Singaporeans will be over the age of 65. This elderly population would potentially be the largest group of persons with disabilities. So our infrastructure needs to be future ready in order to support the independent and active aging. And secondly, I think Singapore has made very strong commitment to support persons with disabilities. An accessible built environment is fundamental. It is a key enabler for persons with disabilities. So we need to fulfill these commitments and to ensure that there are equal opportunities for all members of society.
Now, Jwu Yih, some might say that some might say that the new code might actually equal a higher cost for building owners. What would you say to those people who feel quite apprehensive about the costs that it would incur?
First, I think I need to say that the review for the code was done by a working committee that comprises diverse stakeholders from government agencies, built environment industry stakeholders, and social services agencies, and also academic institutions. So this comprehensive representations ensure that practical and economic consideration were also thoroughly evaluated alongside the accessibility needs. So other than enhancement, the code also introduced design flexibility for our industry practitioners. So this flexibility can help them to manage some of these compliance costs. So, for example, the intent and principles of the requirements are clearly stated in the code. So, architects and designers can actually propose alternative solutions to meet the intent. And this could bring about more cost-effective solutions and reduce the financial burden. At the same time, the code also allows them to bring in new technologies if they feel that the technology can fulfill this aim without strictly following the prescriptive nature of the code.
Yeah. And speaking of these solutions as well, Judy, we're going to end off with you. What is your view on the provision of lactation rooms here? What kind of impact do you think they have on nursing mothers? Is enough being done?
It is important that we encourage mothers to go back to the workplace, and be contributing members of the society as well. It is, mothers want to be able to be as close to their child as possible, and yet they want to be able to go back into the workforce. So it is important for us to make that provision accessible for mothers to express milk as well as, to nurse their child. They can do both now. Yeah.
Judy and Jwu Yih, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. I've been speaking with Mr. Tan Jwu Yih, who is Director at BCA, and Ms Judy Wee from Muscular Dystrophy Association Singapore.